The pick is in.
Falcons have made a selection in the 2024 NFL Draft. Alongside Locked On College Football host Spencer McLaughlin, I'm Tanitra Batiste, and we are joined by Aaron Freeman of Locked On Falcons to break down the Falcons selecting Michael Penix Jr. with the number 8 pick. So, Aaron, first of all, I know there was a thought that the Falcons might go for a skill player for the fourth year in a row, but did you see the Falcons going for this skilled player after landing Kirk Cousins in free agency?
Not at all, T. This blindsided me. I did a podcast the other day saying there was a 0% chance that the Falcons would take a quarterback this high in the draft. And even in a world where I thought it was maybe possible, I never thought it would have been Michael Penix. I know there were a lot of rumors in recent weeks that, the Falcons and Penix were quite fond of each other, but this one caught me off guard.
Indeed. And why do you think in the end the Falcons decided to go after Penix at that 8 spot?
Well, I think a lot of it has to do with the Falcons really, truly believing that they were a quarterback away this offseason. And basically the only significant move they've really made this offseason in terms of, improving their roster was adding Kirk Cousins. And I think they felt like they had the luxury where they could take a flyer on a quarterback like Michael Penix, who's probably going to sit for 2 years behind Kirk Cousins, because the Falcons have basically 90 million guaranteed to Kirk Cousins over the next 2 years. And they basically have 90 million reasons why Michael Penix is going to ride the bench for the next 2 years. But it's going to be an interesting situation because we've never really seen a team really commit to sitting a quarterback at this high in the draft. Everybody talks about, hey, the Packers sat Jordan Love and they sat Aaron Rodgers for 3 years, but both of those guys were picked like pick 25, pick 26. It's a lot different when you're picking guys at that point in the draft, where usually you're getting second round caliber players, and in the top 10 in this draft, where a lot of really blue chip offensive players. We saw, a lot of these offensive players go high in this draft, and you had a real opportunity potentially to get someone to help Kirk Cousins over the next couple of years where he's the starting quarterback, or get a difference maker, one of the top difference makers on the defensive side of the ball at that pick. And the Falcons decided they wanted to go to secure their long-term future at the quarterback position, part because of how many issues they've had in the years since Matt Ryan. And they deemed that Michael Penix over JJ McCarthy, over Bo Nix and others was their best bet there.
Indeed. And Free, as you mentioned, we talked about this a couple days ago on our Locked On Falcons show, as well as some of our other shows here in Atlanta. Now, you had Dallas Turner going to the Falcons. Speaking of that defensive game changer, why do you think maybe Turner would have been the best choice for the Falcons?
Well, anybody who knows anything about the Atlanta Falcons knows that their pass rush has been one of the worst pass rushers in the NFL for 10, 15 years. And so pretty much anybody that could come in and produce in that arena would help this team immediately. And obviously the Falcons did not necessarily feel like any of these pass rushers, whether it was Dallas Turner of Alabama, Laiatu Latu of UCLA, Byron Murphy of Texas, Jared Verse of Florida State, were as good as the quarterback. They felt like getting that quarterback situation secured long-term, and assuming Michael Penix is the long-term answer, because we know quarterbacks this high in the draft, it's about 40, 60 in terms of the hit rate on those guys. So even then, Michael Penix is by no means a sure thing. But they felt like he was the best player available for them at that pick.
And best player available has been their philosophy. For more on the Falcons, subscribe to Locked On Falcons on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Now, Spencer, one thing that might be a benefit for Michael Penix Jr. is the fact that he will potentially get to sit behind a guy like Kirk Cousins for the next couple of years. But what kind of opportunity for him, maybe being the only QB in the top 10 that gets to sit like that, what opportunity or advantage does that make for him?
I just got to give a quick reaction off the top here. Is if Penix is starting after sitting for 2 years, is Kirk Cousins' agent the smartest man in the history of the NFL? Because I don't know that we've seen anything like it. Look, Penix has got plenty of experience in college football going back to his time at Indiana, and I think that if you line up all these guys in the pocket, he's the best pure passer of the football, just standing in the pocket, reading a defense, delivering the ball on time, on target, and with great leverage, particularly down the field. He has the most accurate deep ball I've seen since Joe Burrow coming out of college. He's got an injury history, which might have scared some teams off. Clearly not the Falcons, though. And, at the very least, getting to sit behind Cousins for a couple of years, you'll get to learn the offensive system that Raheem Morris and company want to implement, and you'll have the opportunity to make sure when he does take the field, he's fully healthy. He was a little dinged up at the end of this past season, so that's the advantage there, but this is a surprise.
Surprise indeed. For continuing coverage of the 2024 NFL Draft, subscribe to Locked On NFL on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.